Hi everybody. So we're going to be working on artist trading cards. I have some 2.5 by 3.5 inch index cards I cut out. I have some water, some acrylic paints, and also my brushes. And I've set up to be clean. I also have a ballpoint pen, a regular pencil, and some Sharpies, and colored pencils. And I have oil pastels that are water soluble, meaning that if you mix them with water, they will dissolve and kind of spread around like paint. So as I get started, I'm going to be unpacking some of my supplies and thinking about what kind of trading cards I want to create. Artist trading cards are basically teeny tiny pieces of artwork that you can trade with other artists and really enjoy. They're kind of a stress-free way of making paintings. So I'm working right now with the oil pastels, and again, these are water soluble. So I'm going to try them out. I have not used this brand before, and I'm just wiping them with some water on a brush, and it spreads around a little bit. Not like super impressed, but it looks kind of neat. It's mostly, I use it for the markings. So I'm going to dry off my brush on either a paper towel or a rag. And the paper is curling because, again, these are just index cards, but they're enough to get me started with the process. So I'm going to try a little bit of paint right now, and I'm working on two cards at the same time so that one card can dry while I work on the other. So I'm just putting on some streaks of paint right now, a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, a little dab of purple. So as I'm painting, I'm thinking what I want to do next. I'm actually going to use this brush and scratch into the fresh paint to leave some patterns. And so that technique is called graffito. It's an Italian term that basically means scratching into a surface to leave markings. And it's the origin of the word graffiti. I'm also mixing colors on my palette, and I'm not really sure what I want to do, so I'm putting some lighter colors at the bottom because this painting kind of reminds me of the cold chilliness of winter, even though it's almost spring at this point. And I got to clean my brush off, nice. And I'm going to go back to moving my paintings around and working on the first one. So I have found a glue cap, and I'm going to be using that to actually push into my paint and to leave little dabs on my painting. So I'm using it to make basically circle imprints, kind of like a stencil or a stamp. As I'm working, I'm really liking how this is turning out, and I definitely want to incorporate more stamping techniques using different materials around me. And I don't want to forget, though, I need to clean off my item before I put it away. I don't want my glue sticks to be covered in paint. So I like how that's looking. I'm going to clean off my top, and then I'm actually going to end up using the bottom side of it where I can make rings. So I switched it around, and I'm starting to make ring imprints on the surface of the painting, and it's looking really interesting, and I'm liking how the pattern is turning out. Just got to make sure you clean it up. And then I decided I'm also going to do some markings. So I'm going to make some dabs with a square brush. And I'm mixing in sort of like a lime green color. It was a little bit mint green with the green mixed with white. And I add a little bit of yellow. And here I am just making little dabs. They are basically like linear. They're little lines, rectangular lines. I'm not going to cover the whole surface. I think I'm just going to do one side. And then maybe I'll do some more stamping. So I'm using, again, the empty side of the cap and using it to make little bright green, lime green rings on my paper. After placing a bunch of rings on my paper, I'm going to also clean off the cap again and think about what I want to do next. Being in the classroom makes it a bit challenging because I can't dry my paper off all the time. So usually in my home studio, what I do is I actually use a blow dryer and dry my pieces that way. Switching out my paintings again and going back to the one with the scratchings, I'm thinking again of going towards that like winter theme. So I'm going to add some white dots that make me think of snow. I'm not being particularly careful with the dots. I'm just placing them wherever, but they're starting to look a little bit like polka dots. So after leaving it to dry for a few hours, you can notice that the paper has warped a little bit. I take it and I just gently curl it around my finger to flatten it. Usually I'll put a heavy book on top when it's dry to flatten my paper if it's warped. So I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my paintings at this point in the process. These are mixed media works, so I can actually add any material, and as long as the paint's dry, it can go right on top. So I'm using this dark blue oil pastel, and remember this is water soluble, so if I get it wet with a brush, I can spread it around a little bit like paint, but you'll still see the texture and the drawings underneath. As I continue, I get my masking tape, and I'm going to use that to isolate areas so that when I paint over them, I'll have nice sharp edges as if I had done it with a ruler. So I'm adding a little bit of transparent yellow with a little glitter medium in it for a little extra sparkle. And then I gently peel the tape off. And then I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm just going to draw some markings on it. So I've actually started including rectangles inside some of the markings. And then I decided to actually use the tape roll as a stencil, and using my Sharpie made overlapping circles. I thought it would just be an interesting texture to add in linear elements. The lines are going to make some really interesting designs when I'm finished. And then I've decided to go in with my ballpoint pen and make the lines a little bit darker, a little bit wider, and connecting some of them together to make it kind of like interlocking chains. I returned to my winter themed artist trading card by adding little asterisk shapes that remind me of snowflakes with my ballpoint pen. And I'm thinking, I'm not really sure what I want to do towards the end to finish this up, but then I realized that I haven't put any water or paint in those little boxes. So I grabbed some water on a thin brush and a little tiny bit of blue paint and apply a thin glaze or wash of blue paint into those little rectangles. And I'm pretty much finished up with these two artist trading cards, so hope you enjoyed the video.